Order, can we all stand and pledge allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
March 1, 2011.
All right, Twyla, do you do the roll call?
Counselor Bowie?
But here.
Counselor Bickford?
Yeah.
Counselor Cody?
Here.
Counselor La Rochelle?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor Mason?
Here.
Counselor Pontalon?
Here.
All right, next item, Twyla.
We begin with public hearings on 2011-2012 capital improvement budget.
Back in December, we presented a proposed capital budget for the upcoming year. Again, it's a guideline for us to look. It's not something that you vote on to fund. We look at the funding as we go through the budget process to see what we can afford and what we can't afford, and move forward on that, whatever the case may be on Europe. But any questions? We went over it in detail back in December. The Planning Board has reviewed it and has voted to pass. It is in compliance with the comprehensive plan, which is what the task there they have. And they viewed it at their last meeting.
All right, I'll open the floor to the public. Does anyone have any discussion of this issue? All right, seeing no comments from the public, we will move on to the next item.
Next item is a special entertainment permit for Sandra Harkins doing business as the Railroad Restaurant and Pub.
Okay, are they here? Okay, this is a renewal permit, I believe?
Is a renewal.
Okay, do you have any comments from the public on this renewal permit this is the Railroad Restaurant and Pub? Okay, seeing no further comments from the public, I guess we'll move on to the next item then.
It's under special entertainment permit, Raymond J. Levine, VFW, Post 9459.
Is this also a renewal permit?
It is a renewal.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public on this issue? All right, seeing none, we'll move on then.
Okay, the next item is under the consent agenda. Order 2011-28 to approve the minutes of February 1, February 15, special
I'm
entertainment.
sorry, Twyla, I need to close the public hearing, so this public hearing is now closed.
And
All
we
right.
have to move the item
Okay, I have to move that
before we
item.
get to that.
Okay, Twyla, I would like to move item E on the consent agenda from consent agenda to council orders, resolutions, and ordinances, because we have some discussion on that from councilors.
Okay,
All right?
all right. So then their consent agenda would read 2011-28 to approve the minutes of February 1, February 15, special entertainment permit and liquor license for Sandra Harkins doing business as the Railroad Restaurant and Pub, a special entertainment permit and liquor license for Raymond J. Levine, VFW, Post 9459.
So move. Second.
All those in favor? And opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. Order passed 7-0.
All right, next item, Twyla.
Order 2011-29, road postings from March 7, 2011 through May 1, 2011.
Okay,
Public Works Director Elwood Beal is here. If people have any questions about the postings, you all have them in your packets. It's the list that we do every year, this time of year, to prevent the heavy trucks and any damage to the roads.
okay.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. The list does look like the list that we do every year. At the bottom of this list, however, it says that Wing Street and Webster Road are posted year-round. And I have questions about that in that it's not my understanding that roads are posted year-round. It's my understanding that Wing Street has a no through trucks sign year-round there. So I wanted clarification on that, and that Webster Road is not officially posted off limits for trucks. It actually has a weight limit on Webster Road, and that is year-round.
All right, Buttons, could you come to the podium and respond to that? Thank you.
That's what it is, Lori. It's just a weight limit sign on Webster Road. It's not designed to take trucks. I believe it's the 23,000 pounds or over.
Okay.
And Wing Street is no through trucks over 5 tons.
And that is for the Route 9 to Main Street corridor, like
Yes.
a thoroughfare,
Yes.
like, okay.
Just
All right.
hold big trucks from going down through there.
Okay, thank you.
That was posted back when Roger Martel was the
Right,
director.
and the sign is there.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't actually posting it
No, it's not
as these
posted.
other roads for winter weather, because of the way it was written.
No, that's not what it's for at all.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions or comments from council?
I would make a motion to approve the list of roads for winter weight limit postings, understanding that Wing Street is posted for no-through trucks and that Webster Road is a posted weight limit.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, Twyla?
Is Order 2011-29B, Capital Improvement Budget.
Again, this is, just need your approval for adoption. We do this every year. We make that proposal. We make specific changes if something got funded or didn't get funded. We might move it ahead to the following year. And again, we take this through the budget process for your decision if we're going to fund something or not. So I just need a vote to accept the capital improvement program the way presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, do I have any further discussion from council on this issue? All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item?
Under other business, the self-funded health insurance discussion with Michelle Trammell.
Michelle, the council asked if Michelle would take a look at some of the self-funding rates and programs that we were presented for a change in our health care plan. She works in this field. We all felt it would be beneficial if we heard from her. So,
Michelle, would you like to, you have something to present to us tonight? Like to come up to the podium?
I wasn't really asked to
okay.
present, I was asked to read over the information.
the-
And I got the packet yesterday, and then I was at an educational forum for the American Heart Association all day today, but I'm assuming you just want a
Well,
perspective on all my head nods at the public hearing and discussion you guys had last week about it?
Yeah,
or
you have a lot more knowledge than I do about this, certainly, so we're certainly interested in hearing your opinion on where we should go with this.
Well, I mean, I guess when you look at a self-insured or self-funded plan, I guess the way I look at it is this, my comment is to this. If your car insurance company comes back and tells you you have a 9% increase this year, no matter what you do this year, I already know you're going to have a 9% increase this year. Or you could shop around with like a self-insured plan, and you, as the insured, have the ability to control your rate increase, i.e., when you go to the doctor, okay, on the weekends, you wake up, you have a sore throat, you have a fever. Do you, A, go to the emergency room, or do you wait and go to your PCP on Monday because your occurrence to go is going to be less? And by having a less occurrence at the end of the year, you have the potential to drive your rates down. You don't have that control with the other company, and they've actually already told you you're going to have an increase. I guess what I look at as an employee with the current company I am, and I mean, we're self-insured because of the company, but as an employee, I have the ability to drive my rate. And I guess that's what, and as an employee, I understand this isn't a given, this is a benefit. And it's a benefit that can be taken away. So if the control is given to me to help drive my rates and my premiums and my overall coverage at what the town can afford to provide to me as my benefit, I think that's something that the employee should have the control over. You know, I mean, you can't foresee, you know, if you have a diagnosis such as cancer, that we know treatment-wise is exorbitant in cost, which is why I was concerned about some of the lifetime maximums, and I did get that information from Jody. But things like that you can't foresee any more so than you can going out tomorrow and pulling out and getting hit by a truck. But this is something that, as a town and as a town employee, you have the ability to help drive your rate for next year. Your rate this year is pretty well set based on your occurrences last year, but for this year and going forward, you have the ability to continue to drive your rates down. The lower your rates go, the more appealing it might be to other employees who are going on their spouse's plans that may end up in the long run being more than these ones that by being able to drive them down. And therefore, if you can get more than 50 employees on the plan, 50 participants or higher, you're going to continue to drive your rates down, because right now you're at a very low employee threshold that's being covered. So, I mean, to me, it's a win-win situation for the town, but, I mean, ultimately, it's up to you guys as to how you want to do it.
Thank you, Michelle. I think, definitely.
Question, yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
No, Lori, go ahead, Lori.
The insurance plan that you're on now, does your employer, in addition to being able to have the employee help to drive the cost down by, different utilization, does your employer also provide additional incentives? Like, is there rewards or percent back or
Yeah.
paying co-pays or
The back of
whatever?
your packets, you
Okay.
guys got all the wellness that I forwarded to Jody. I mean, $500 a year that can go into we have a health savings account.
Okay.
You guys are looking, I believe, at an FSA and an HSA as an option. This was in your packets last time, I believe. She
Okay,
had,
we did see those last
yeah,
time.
and
Okay,
she
yeah.
referenced it was material that I had forwarded to her.
Okay, yeah.
By having, and the wellness is something that you may have to grow into as you reduce your savings and your costs, because then you'll have some additional funds to offer. I know with my employer, by participating in the wellness, by participating in the healthy lifestyles, the weight loss, I mean, all those things, that's $500 that at the end of the year went into my health savings account to go towards my deductibles and my out-of-pockets. I mean, it's money that goes right back into the employee's pocket. So there's an incentive to going, by doing your health assessment and seeing your PCP once a year for just your physical, to have your normal stuff checked, where we know a lot of things come about that you find out you didn't even know you had. You get an incentive put back into your account by doing that. So, I mean, there's all kinds of wellness programs out there, and what you guys decide to fund and choose, the sky's the limit, basically, because there's a ton out there that you can offer. My understanding is that there were some grant funds through the MMA plan that may not be available under this one, but with your cost savings, you may be able to even do better than what you currently have. Maybe not this year, but going forward, there's that incentive.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Vern?
In the first year, Michelle, because you mentioned the idea of the incentive to actually drive down the cost for the individual person, in the first year, will an employee actually see those benefits? I mean, besides the deductible, which I assume is a percentage, all depends how the policy's written, but also for the co-pays. I mean, is it possible for the first year in the plan for an employee to see a difference out-of-pocket expenses, or is it really based on they're controlling their going to the emergency room versus the idea of going to the doctor? Or, I mean, I was just wondering if year one, I mean, because you mentioned after that first year, if they drive down and get a better ratio, the next year it would be better. But I was just wondering that first year if the employees would actually see much of a benefit. That's all.
Well, I mean, from a cost perspective, you pay a lot more to go to the emergency room because of your co-insurance or out-of-pocket versus just going to your PCP and having an office visit copay. The cost to go to the emergency room, outside of it costing your insurance a lot more, you're out-of-pocket to go versus just paying a flat, whether it's a $25 deductible to go to your PCP.
So you're saying
There's a
emergency
cost
room
savings right there
could be a
because you're out-of-pocket.
20%, like a match, a 80-20 type, is that what you're saying? So that 20% of going to the emergency room would be a
Right.
lot more than going and just paying a $20 copay at your doctor on Monday.
Right, and I mean, I myself, having been a military spouse for years, I had a military facility at my disposal. Did I abuse it by going every time my kids had a sniffle? You betcha, because it was free. I didn't have to think about it. Are you trying to cause employees to maybe hold off when they or their child feels sick? No, it's not about that, but it's about thinking in the back of your head, if you want to save your costs and you want to continue to have a benefit available to you, you want to try to do the right thing. And if that means waiting 24 hours until Monday when your doctor's office opens up, because at the end of 24 hours, it may have exhausted. You may not have that issue anymore, because with viruses and whatnot, 24 hours makes a big difference.
And if it gets worse, you always have the option of still going.
Yeah.
Yep.
But do you want to continue to have the benefit? Do you want to continue to pay a low premium for the benefit and still have the best benefits out there that you currently have, which from what I'm seeing, you guys are trying to match the plans, pretty identical, with the difference that the out-of-pocket should drive down, because what this particular plan actually covers in regards to testing and labs and things like that is different than what you currently have. It's different in a better way than what you currently have. So out-of-pocket wise, they should already see a reduction this year just based on that. And then also, like I said, thinking smart about, do I need to go now or can it wait? You've got plenty of time to monitor it. I mean, monitor the fever, monitor the other things or whatever the symptoms are and make that decision. But ultimately, the employees have the ability to continue to drive their rates down and every single year drive them down. And then, like I said, right now, you're considered a very small group because you're under 50. Get over 50 because you can entice additional people to want to become members. You're going to continue, even though your participation level goes up, your rates will go down. So, I mean, I think it's a win-win situation.
As long as it's managed properly, right?
Right.
In a sense, yeah.
And the employees have the ability to assist in that, where right now, I mean, the current plan you have, you're told what you're going to pay, you're told what they're going to reimburse, and the employees, this is, what they're given. They haven't had that option, so you have a choice at this point. I always like choice myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. Any further questions for Michelle?
Actually, you made a point about it, and that was one of the questions I had, was lifetime benefits. Was that capped, or what was the limit on that as far as, do you remember? Not putting you on a spot, I was just kind of curious.
No, I saw one, and I don't know if it was MMA's or this one, because it wasn't real clear. And I thought there was
It's
a
not a big deal. It's,
It was $1 million. I think it was $1 million.
Sounds right.
I don't know if it tells us.
Under the MMA one, under the health trust, they list a lifetime maximum of $5 million per person.
yeah,
Right.
And although that may sound like a lot,
it's not.
knowing healthcare and we're talking, cost and whatnot, somebody who's on chemo, radiation, has had surgeries and other things, and you add that into a span of a 2-year treatment plan, I mean, I think you'd be shocked as to how
It's
quickly
chewed
that
up
would add up.
really fast.
It is. But, I mean, that's the only thing that I could see, but there isn't this type of information on the other one. But
Yeah.
she did assure me that
Those-
everything's comparable.
Apples to apples.
The only difference was the out-of-pocket that is a current issue, which is you go for your physical, they want to have some labs, but then maybe there's some additional testing they want to have done, and that's presently out-of-pocket, where under this other plan it wouldn't be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
So, I don't know if you were looking for other information or what, but.
No, any view is good.
yeah.
I mean, any
We'll be
information we
back at
get.
it.
We'll be back, right?
All
Yeah.
right.
We appreciate your input a lot.
We're still waiting for updated prices from them. We
Okay.
thought we'd get them today, but we did not, so
Okay, well, keep us on top of that.
I will, for sure.
All right, call that next item.
Is B Route 196, discussion.
I think most of you attended the 196 study presentation that was given by the engineers from New Hampshire that worked for the DOT. After they finished their final study, which didn't really change much from what you had originally seen, they left us a final version. We met with representatives from Topsom, Lewiston, and then Ryan and I met, and they discussed there's being a change in Augusta, so some of the people that were involved would be changing, but their recommendation, what they would like from this council is you saw the presentation. If you need to look at the study, we've got it here. It was a very large file, and we couldn't get it online, but they would like a recommendation, what you've heard from the citizens of Lisbon and the business owners, of what you as a council would like to see happen. And they gave you some options, 5 lanes, the bypass, the 3 lanes and 4 lanes, and if you have any thoughts on that as a council, I'd love to hear them.
You certainly don't want 5 lanes. Don't want a bypass. At least I don't. I mean, I would entertain a 3rd lane for turning purposes, right? To try and help keep traffic flowing, but I really don't think, based on property limitations and how much road they may have to take, and where buildings are currently, positioned on the thoroughfare there, I mean, I don't think you can go much wider than the 3rd lane and try to squeeze that in for turning, and I really think that's gonna be a little tight. It will impact potentially biking lanes or anything like that if we were gonna have any of that stuff. I mean, when we redid, when they repaved, did the Sabattis River Bridge a few years ago, we asked them to widen that even further, and they didn't want to, right? So that we could make sure that if there was additional expansion in years to come, we could still have a bike lane and things like that to do that. And they weren't interested in it at that time, but now they got this great study that, you know, they think they've got 1,000 different options to go do. I mean, my personal opinion is I would entertain maybe looking at the feasibility of a turning lane, third lane turning lane.
And certainly,
I think that'll be difficult even through the, the Lisbon center area. Even a third lane is going to be really hard to fit in there without impacting a lot of people's houses. So, all right. I think, I think there are areas where a third lane would be very beneficial, but more on the outskirts of town, not right through the downtown areas.
Right. Yeah, you may not be able to do it the whole way.
Right. I think that's an option that we should try to propose to them, is something that's not right in the downtown, just the, less built-up areas, where there's still businesses that make a lot of turning motions. Roger?
I'm hearing, of course, I'm gonna hear it from where I'm employed, I'd like to have a bypass, but because of the terrible congestion there, especially in the afternoon.
Which section?
In the
All-
falls,
all-
especially.
yeah.
Corridor.
The whole corridor is just a real congested area, and there's a lot of
3:30, you mean?
people. Yeah, it's terrible. And I'm hearing a lot of people that would like to see a bypass, and their argument is that if we want to go through Lisbon, we're going to go through Lisbon to stop there or to do business there, we're going to go there regardless of the bypass, and the bypass would be for commuting to work. And that's their argument. I know we have a lot of businesses in town would not agree with me, but this is, what I'm hearing from some people that if you come up through, especially late in the afternoon or around when school's getting out, it is terrible. And it's like that all the way from Brunswick, from Thompson. It's right bumper to bumper all the way. It's definitely a bottleneck.
Yeah, I've driven it a good bit myself. I used to commute down to the Phippsburg area, so I'm very familiar with that myself, too.
Yeah, this is pretty struggling. May I, Mark?
Yes, go ahead, Frank.
I agree. I think there's certain areas where, especially where I guess bottleneck could be approved. I mean, not that this is the exact part of that, but even minor fixes like 196 and Capitol Avenue, where there's actually a turn lane without a turn arrow or delay, that is probably one of the biggest prone accidents places in town, because it just, if you want to turn left at the right time, you can't turn left because there's no delayed light or a green arrow, which I would think small improvements like that could be actually done a lot more cost effectively to make traffic flow better. As much as we hated to do it, and shouldn't say hated to do it, but put it off, the turning lane in front of the high school going up Route 9, I think that helped a lot. I mean, the idea of breaking that up. So maybe the idea of just fine tuning what we have and putting maybe that third lane or a turning lane in certain areas that would be better. I mean, I think that third lane out front of Midtown, and I mean, that's almost, it's nice, but it's almost confusing sometimes where they have laid out. And I think it's just the idea of having it more controlled with lights and allowing people to flow through. I mean, even BIW traffic coming through 196 to Tottenham, it's only 2 lanes, and it flows through there pretty good. It's just more the idea of, timing of lights. And,
I mean, it's the whole deal with traffic lights, right? Because when they built the Thompson bypass, right? I mean, Thompson bypass now has, what, 5, 6 traffic lights in it? I mean, that's just a ridiculous bypass, right? A bypass isn't supposed to have lights, right? A bypass is straight shot, you get around the business district, right? If that's the way you want to go. So, I mean, I thought that was stupid when they did that in Thompson, so.
Well, the way I look at it, I like to have a bypass myself, but you're right with the stoplights, because time they get done going up through, you're gonna have a light for Capitol Avenue to go in the back way of there. Then you're gonna have a light probably for Dingley Press. Everybody's gonna, because Dingley Press will be wanting to come out onto the bypass and go down, and the people from Capitol Avenue. So you're gonna have all that same stuff.
Right. Exactly.
I would like to see the bypass, because I'm one of the people that, I go to Millis to get gas, and sometimes I gotta wait 15 minutes to get out. And that's
Right.
costing me money. But other than that, I guess,
Yeah.
it's very split down through it. I can't say more people want it than not.
Yeah, but I think certainly, businesses are worried about losing the traffic through there in that downtown area, but there's a lot of people that probably don't do business down there because of the horrible traffic at that downtown plaza area is just so bad there that some people probably avoid it. I mean, I certainly do sometimes.
We're definitely talking about an hour period in a day. I mean, I think more so than not. I mean, 90% of the day, it's pretty free-flowing traffic. It's a time frame, and whether or not they could actually gauge that better with just the timing of the street lights, so
Right,
they
I
actually have
wonder if
longer
we do that,
greens. I
right.
mean, the street lights should be pretty computerized today, so.
The thing is, though, is if you leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, it isn't an issue. But where you run into your problems, like in the past couple of weeks, I've had considerable amount of time off, and I'm finding myself traveling the 196 corridor for one reason or another. And when school is in session, it is terrible. In the morning, it is terrible trying to get through there. And if you're an employee traveling direct through to go down to take the town, 95 to go to Portland, or what have you, it is a real bottleneck to get through. A lot of people have resulted, now that they've got the 136, I believe, in Auburn, they're using that a lot more now to get around this bottleneck. And I don't think that a bypass is necessarily a bad thing for town. I think it can be a good thing for town, because if people want to do business in town, they're gonna come this route regardless.
Steve, did they have when they want to start this, did they have a time period or when they want to start?
No, it's,
Right.
When they
$100
find some
million,
money.
where are they gonna find that?
Quarter at a time in the piggy bank eventually.
the study,
Pot of gold at the end of a rainbow.
the primary study was
Yeah,
in the
a pot of
Brunswick
gold.
Naval Air Station area. That's what started it. And then they kind of looked at this corridor, and there's been umpteen studies, probably 10 anyway, and to look at this corridor. And all the things that you're saying are issues. When you get to Lisbon Falls, where Kennebec Fruit is, part of the MDOT's right-of-way is beyond that sidewalk onto their foundations. That's an intersection that has been a real issue, and they'd like to try to do something with that, but they don't have the space to do it. One of the recommendations, we've been working with some of the people on the lower end of Lisbon who are looking at development there, Longchamps and the Kellys. And some of the recommendations that we had talked with the DOT about was where the flea market is there, making that for 3 lanes. You have more space there to go all the way into Lewiston, which is where Lewiston would like to see more lanes, 3 or 4 lanes going into Lewiston. But then narrowing it down when you come through by Graciano's and over into the Lisbon Center, and then when you come down over the hill, have the turning lanes around the Sabatis Bridge area. Maybe make some improvements to where Rite Aid in that area is, because it's, one of the things that you'll be looking at soon is the access management. You've got so many openings going into that area, school, Aubuchon's, Subway. It really causes a lot of issues, and we tried when Aubuchon's was building to get the DOT to kind of make it a different access for them, but that didn't fly, so these are things that have been discussed.
One of the things is one of the big pet peeves that people have also is that they got rid of the ability to pass on 196 by having the turn-in lane all the way. And if one of the problems they're having is if you get behind somebody that's a little skittish during a slippery driving, you can come all the way from Lewiston at 25 miles an hour, and you don't have an opportunity to pass that vehicle. And that was another real big issue that people have.
Oh, yeah, I think that's actually mentioned in their suggestions here, was the last one, is provide opportunities along the corridor for motorists to pass slower moving vehicles, which I'd hope they would look into like areas in Lewiston and Topsom for passing lanes there. 'Cause
Up to
we used to have that in
Center.
Lisbon Center, and
Yeah.
people got killed right in there, so
Yeah.
that's why we had to change that.
And another point that was brought up at that meeting that is a valid point is, unfortunately, we just had our Route 9 that was redeveloped as pretty much a nice travel lane. So if you were to bypass, you pretty much somehow would hook up Route 9 to that bypass, which would be almost impossible. You have this, which I'm not sure if you look at map questions, sometimes they actually try to connect you to going up Route 9 to get on 95 versus the idea of going to Lawson. So being a major route, it'd be very hard to connect Route 9 with that bypass and not go through the middle of town again. It'd be very difficult, I think, but.
Any further issues from council?
I just wanted to point out that I don't know where they'll get the $100 million because it's not there.
No.
And it's not going to be there for a long time from some of what I've heard from Bruce Poliquin, who is the state treasurer. And also, too, one point that was brought out in the audience, it was kind of funny to me. A gentleman made the comment, I cannot remember his name, but he deals with the governor's office. Is it Leighton? Is it Leighton Cooney or Cooney Leighton? Was that the gentleman that was here?
May have been.
Okay, I can't remember, I get his name confused, which one's his first name and which is his last, but anyways, he commented that, we need to accommodate these 400 to 500 jobs that are coming to the base redevelopment. That just didn't make sense to me, because we just lost 5,000 jobs, and we're gonna have 400 to 500 come, and we need to accommodate those, so that was just kind of a comment that kind of was a little strange to me, and I don't know, I hate to see 5 lanes go through here. I think that's virtually impossible. And 3 lanes, that's pushing it. A turning lane, maybe. But, if you drive 196 and you look at what's there, to put that kind of an impact on our town will be very different. Do we need to do something about traffic management? Yes, we do. There are times of day that it's difficult to get in and about, but, I can't see this project happening. They've talked about it since I was a kid, and that was a long time ago. So, it's something they've discussed, and I don't think there's any easy solution to it, so.
You fix a pothole, you could increase the speed by 10 miles an hour, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I don't know. It's great, and they do these studies, but will it ever happen? I don't know.
All right, anything further from the council? Mr. Fillmore, would you like to speak on this issue?
I'm Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I have no problems with this widening of 196, except for one minor thing. When they widen from the Lisbon Center area, and we've all addressed that up there, you're going to have a problem, because you are going to render every one of those houses from the medical center to Graziano's not marketable. And that means that you're going to have to lower their value on their houses, and that's money that we're going to have to take away from the town now, okay? You're going to provide an unsafe environment for all of the children who live on that corridor right there. And it's just not feasible to do it just from, I'd say, the medical center to Graziano. There are not that many commercial businesses in that particular area, 2, 3 maybe, okay? So the impact would be little. If you wanted to keep the corridor and widen it, why not just bypass Lisbon Center? You have enough room to have your 3 lanes in the other areas, okay? So you don't need to mess with Lisbon Center. Some of those houses now, you walk out the front door, your first step, you're on the sidewalk, okay? I know we got a city ordinance, town ordinance about how close you can be to that, and some of those are way out of line right now. If they try to widen it anymore, you're going to be in the guy's living room watching TV with him, okay? I have no problems with it as far as increasing and all this and that. I just think that that one corridor needs to be left out of the mix. Find another way. Do something else, because we're going to lose too much by trying to widen that. Because like Mike said, you can't get a 3rd lane in there in some places. No way. Okay? So I think any proposal that you go back to them with needs to have Lisbon Center taken into consideration, because it's just not going to be feasible to do.
Thank you, Mr. Fillmore. I think most of us agree with you from what I've heard here, that we have certainly an issue there in Lisbon Center that we're going to have to reply to them on. Any further questions? Dot, would you like to take the podium?
Thank you. Dot Fitzgerald, resident of Lisbon Falls on School Street. I attended all 3 of the Maine Department of Transportation meetings on this issue. The first one was in Topsom, not very well attended. The second one was in Lewiston, a little bit more well attended, but not that much. But the crowd here in Lisbon Falls was big. The place was packed. After that last meeting, on a Sunday, I was out and about, and I thought, let me try something. So I clocked Lisbon Falls, the town of Lisbon, from the Little River Bridge by Knight Celotex up to the Lewiston-Lisbon town line. 6 miles. Maybe a tenth of a mile short of 6 miles. 4 traffic lights. 6 miles, 4 traffic lights. And people in Lewiston are complaining. You know, you get to the Lewiston city line, and there's a traffic light every 500 feet. And you have to slow down to 25, 35 miles an hour. You get to Topsom, as I agree with Mike on that one, you get to the I-95 overpass, there's a traffic light, and there's at least a half a dozen or more traffic lights till you get to the overpass and then, the bypass and then beyond that. If you're talking about a bypass, DOT was talking about a bypass from the foot of Main Street in that area by the Warrumble Mill. And then I'm not sure where it would come out, but I'm wondering how that would impact the walking path. They're putting a lot of money into that walking path, including a 150-foot-long bridge. Hello? I know there are periods of time when the traffic backs up a little bit. My kitchen window when I'm eating breakfast looks out onto the Route 196, that School Street intersection. And sometimes before high school, it backs up to that. It's a short period of time, maybe 15, 20 minutes or so. Is the state gonna spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to correct something that is a problem for a short period of time? I don't know. To me, it does not make fiscal sense, my opinion.
Thank you, Dot. And I agree with your position. I grew up in North Conway, up in New Hampshire, and anyone who's been up there knows you have traffic lights about every 100 feet up along through there, and it's just a major thing. And they've been trying to build a bypass up there for probably 30 years, so it's probably the timetable we're looking at here with funding.
Yeah, exactly.
Any further discussion on this issue?
So do we need to
we
take
need
a
to-
vote at any time, or?
What I will do is I'll draft, from what I've heard tonight, somewhat of a proposed letter, comments on it, and then get it out to you for approval, or any editing that you'd like to do, and send it off to them once we have approval from them. Okay?
On their last page of next steps, is that something they're gonna go off and do, or are they looking for each municipality to go do
This one
that,
here?
or?
Page 7, you mean? Is that the one you're talking
Yeah,
about, Mike?
page 7, yeah. The last page.
You mean their interim actions?
Yeah, those potential interim actions, I mean, is that?
Looks like those are recommendations for the towns along the corridor, yeah.
Well, the access management ordinance, that is something that they have been recommending for a while, and we have a draft that we'll be bringing to you soon. The signal turning and phasing, that is something that the ATRC, the MPO, is working on through AvCog, a whole computerized system, which should help improve quite a bit of the corridor, hopefully, and considering lanes.
Do we know what we need to do there to improve the signal turning?
Well, we do the restriping of crosswalks every year, so And they are going to be resurfacing sections of it. So those are ongoing things.
Right, and this would also refer to, as I talked to you about and as brought up by Fern and Mike tonight, the idea of getting a turning light at that Capitol Avenue intersection there, which is really a problem for anyone that drives through there can see that, needs some turning arrows.
Most of these recommendations are things that the ATRC is already working on.
Okay.
So some of them are in the process of being done.
Okay, so yeah, if you draft us a letter and then
Yep.
email it out, and we
I'll
can
do that.
get back to you on that. All right, next item, Twyla?
Is under C, audience participation discussion.
This was a topic that was asked by one of the counselors to put on the agenda, so we could talk about the process and how it's done. So
May I?
Certainly, Fern, go ahead.
This, as Mark would know, I actually called and spoke to Mark about this, and this brought up a pretty interesting discussion from the last meeting where Lori actually gave her opinion about the audience participation, which, she actually meant at one point in time that, she would probably not feel so badly if I actually went away for a while to try to be productive meetings, trying to prevent the idea of it going away. I actually, talking to other people and seeing other committees work, and one of the things, if you notice, you go to the school board or other meetings, they really actually try to keep any audience participation strictly to the agenda. One of the things that I thought may help the council and maybe Steve and us actually give informed decision is the idea, and as I approached Mark on it, was if we could request the idea of for the participants to actually, prior to our meeting, give us a written description of what their concerns would be, so when they do approach us at the meeting, we can actually have some type of response that's been at least looked at and planned ahead of time. And then try to keep the audience participation of the meeting strictly with the agenda. If someone asks us a question about something that's on the agenda, we know how the answer was, shame on us, but to ask us a question or approach us about something we have really not much information or background on is pretty tough. So, if it was my recommendation that we could move forward with some type of, I'm not sure of a plan or a change that would allow people to, prior to our agenda, putting a written request in to the chair and to the manager of what they would like to bring up at the next meeting. That would give the council and Steve the time, hopefully, to actually put together a proper response, so we could actually look somewhat educated or at least knowledged when we actually give a response back, if one is needed. And I figured it'd be a good opportunity. One of the things that we're kind of told on team building is the idea to talk about stuff, not just actually not try to work around it. So I thought it'd be a good discussion for the council to, give their opinions on audience participation so everybody knows. And if any other ideas can come out of it, I think it'd be great, because I'd like to see it very productive and make it consistent, that's all.
Go ahead, Roger.
I totally disagree with limiting, stopping any type of participation by our constituents. We are put in here by a vote of our constituents, and if we don't want to deal with them, we shouldn't be here. Bottom line is, they have the right to come to the council and speak of anything that they choose to speak, and as voted members, we should be willing to accept their criticism or answer their questions. And any way that you stop that, I think, is detrimental to the council to continue as it is. It's detrimental to the town, and I personally would fight this to the death, because I think this is a pretty wrong thing and wrong message to the people.
Thank you, Roger.
Like to speak?
Yes, go ahead, Larry.
What I had said, and is referenced in the meeting minutes from the last meeting, is that I certainly do not want to give the message to the public that we don't want to hear what they have to say. But it is hard to come in and be kind of broadsided with a topic, and sometimes people stand here and expect to get a response that, if we're not aware of what the question is, we may not have at our fingertips. And the worst thing for us to be able to do is to sit here and try to give an answer that we may not have all of the information for. So with the council members, when I talked about this to several of them, I had said it would be nice if we did have an opportunity to either know in advance what the question or concern is and have an opportunity to look into it, or be held accountable to get back to the townspeople if in fact we do continue with the audience participation and a question is asked, do the due diligence so that we can get the answers and then timely respond to people. I again want to reiterate that I'm not trying to cut people off from saying what they want to say, bringing concerns forward, but we do need to figure out a way that, townspeople bring information to us. We either are able to answer it because we do have the information available to us, or we have an opportunity to get back. And as the council, because we have been elected to be able to answer these questions, we have, an opportunity to get back to people timely. What is not feeling so good about it is that and this is not a secret, people that know me and have talked to me and have worked with me on the council, I feel like there have been issues that we continue to spin our wheels on. It seems counterproductive to have audience participation when issues continue to come up, sometimes even when we've addressed the issue and we have given answers, to certain things. The issues sometimes have to be put to rest and move on to other things. If I reflect on the last year of what this council has done, there have been some very positive things, but there's also been a number of fires that just continue to burn, and we never get to put the issues to bed. And I sometimes think that the venue for people to be able to continue to bring those things up is audience participation. And so, I would be in favor of continuing audience participation if it is related to an agenda item, or with the understanding that people come forward, they say whatever it is that they have a concern about, and not necessarily expect that an answer is going to be given right at that moment. We may not be able to do that. If we can, by all means, we will. But then we have some sort of an obligation to get back to the townspeople with whatever the answer is in a reasonable fashion. And having said all of that, on the flip side of it, I don't think that we've responded to people timely and appropriately, and I think that also contributes to the fires continuing to burn. And that's not a secret to anybody on this council. We know that, and we will continue to try to work on that. Part of our policing our own, the team building that we did with Don Garish, the workshop that we had a few weeks ago, and so recognizing that we have work, townspeople have work as well.
Thank you, Larry.
Mark?
Yes, go ahead, Roger.
One of the things that I think that I would rather see, rather than limiting people to speak, would be to follow up, as you said, Laurie, and answer these questions that these people have. If you don't give the answers to the questions asked, they have the right to continue to bring the question up. I also would like to think that we could, if we have a constituency that would like to speak with us, if they have issues, they could communicate with us, not only on the council, but through emails, through phone calls, or what have you. If we were more receptive to them, maybe that would be the ultimate way to go. But to limit anybody from coming to the council, I think sends a very wrong message. It's just detrimental to every part of anything we're trying to do. What I've heard Gina speak very often, that we want people to get involved and to do things with the town. And if you shut them off at the podium, you're going to shut them off on a lot of aspects of the town. And I don't think that would be in the best interest of the town.
Yeah, go ahead.
May I? I agree that it's important for the townspeople to be able to speak their opinion, but we cannot make it a town meeting every time we have an issue. I think civility is the word of the day. We hear it on the news a lot lately, and I think that that's something that's fallen away. There's been a lot of finger pointing, and the other issue that I think we need to be real careful with is being factual. To accuse and finger point makes it difficult to sit up here when you don't know what the issue is at hand, you don't have an answer, and you're expected to have an answer. And I think that's what Lori's getting at. So being civil, both us and the citizen that's speaking, is important. And also being factual. You may have something you heard, or it's important for just as important for the citizen to research as much as it is for us. So I agree that citizens need to speak, but I also agree that they need to be respectful of us and the job that we're trying to do. So
Thank you, Gino. One thing I might suggest as a middle road here is that we could try tweaking our working rules if we feel the current working rules we have for meetings aren't working well. Rather than just completely taking off audience participation, we might have a workshop to discuss what improvements we could make to our working rules if there's things that might help that way. Because I'm just very worrisome about completely sending the wrong message by turning people off and saying you can't speak except with our permission. Then there may be a lot of issues that may come up, and people just want to come in and have some complaint about you didn't plow my sidewalk right, and we shouldn't tell those people we don't want to hear from you until next week in the right format. That's not really the message I want to send. Roger?
One thing that I will bring up also is that we talk about, what we're discussing right now is people coming to the podium and bringing something that takes us a little bit off guard. Department heads could also give a heads up when they're going to humiliate you in public. It would be nice if they kind of give you a heads up of what's coming so that I could prepare myself. I welcome the challenges because I find them humorous at best, but I would like to have a little heads up of what's coming also, instead of just trying to blindside me as well. And if the public doesn't like something that I'm saying or doesn't like something that I'm doing, I take that as a corrective action to change my ways or find another occupation.
Thank you, Roger. Did I hear a comment on this side? So either of you? Okay. Any further comments from council on this issue?
Everything was said.
Would you want to give me any direction what you would like to do to move forward on that?
I don't know. How's the council feel on this issue? I don't hear consensus at the moment.
I don't know. From what I heard, I think maybe a workshop to discuss it a little further would be worth
Yeah, I think
trying
so.
to come up with.
Tweak the working rules, or if we can, try that as a first step, and if we still have problems and we can't get the meetings to work
How we
better,
wanna
maybe,
do it.
then we can look at that as a last
It's
resort
important
option.
to us to make sure the public knows that just because you get in front of us, don't expect an answer, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the whole adage of the old town meetings, right? I mean, the public could get up and talk all they wanted. The selectmen didn't have to respond to the comments, right? I mean, it's, and it's not that we don't want to, but like Lori said, if we don't have the information in front of us and none of us want to speak unfactually, you're probably not going to get an answer that night.
That's right.
And can we do better at following up on that? Probably.
Go ahead, Roger.
I would like to see, if we did have a workshop on this, what is the public expecting from us? Let the public tell us what they would like from us. Are we not fulfilling our commitment? Are they expecting something from us that we're not doing? I think that would be better served than just shutting them off. I really do.
Well, we could have a public hearing too, if we'd like to make sure to pull them too. I don't want to exclude the public either.
I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to be making positive forward strides for the town, right? And we want to show that we're making progress, we're doing things that the town needs to have be done. And I think there's some of us here that are feeling that we're not doing all the work that we should be doing and making the positive impact that we'd like to try and make. And it's, how do we take care of that?
Thank you, Mike. All right, anything further from council?
I'll schedule something and put some information together so you can have a workshop on it.
Thank
Okay.
you. I think that was my main goal, is the idea. There was a concern from a counselor and from many that I think the more we discuss and the more that we bring forward, it's going to be better, if nothing, just the idea of knowing where everybody stands on it, so.
Thank you, Fern. Mr. Fillmore, raise your hand. Do you want to make a comment on that?
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I started coming out here when we had the tax problem, okay? And the issue was, at that point, the public was told nothing can be done about the tax commitment because we have a valid commitment. The townspeople kept hammering on this. Come to find out, the residents were right. We had an invalid commitment. Now, I agree with Lori, okay, that when I come up here and I ask questions before, I said, I don't expect an answer that night. but I would like for that issue to be on the agenda. We had to fight Mr. Bowie to get it on, the tax issue, on a reoccurring update, okay, after we brought up the fact that it was an invalid commitment. Now, we shouldn't have to do that. And I'm not expecting anybody up there, when I ask a question off the blue, to have an answer. I don't. But I would like to see is them either get back to me in writing, or at the next meeting, give us a status as to where we are with that. If the council put out in any of your agendas the procedures for taxpayers to get an issue on the agenda, that might help too. But there's no written procedures, okay, on how to get an issue on the agenda. It just says the chair makes up the agenda. That's all it says in the charter. Well, there's got to be a procedure. And if we ask for something on the agenda and it doesn't get on the agenda, then if you take away the audience participation, it's never going to be there. So if we write it to you and you don't respond, then it's like, why did I do this? And I agree that it has to be a two-way street. I never step up here unless I tell you, you know, I don't put you on the spot. I ask questions, okay? And I expect an answer later after it's been researched. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. And I've been very critical at times. I also make sure that I do research before I come up here, so that I know what I'm talking about when we get here. Okay? So I agree that we need to have a better procedure in place for people to voice to the council what they want, or their opinions, or their issues, and that give you a heads up as to enough time to look into it, so when we have it on the agenda, we get an answer, okay? And I don't think that anybody is against that. I think that's the correct way to go. Draft up a procedure on how you want us to get issues to you, okay? But if you don't respond to those issues, you know, then we need to have the public, the audience participation. And I don't think we should take that away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fillmore. Any further comments? Go ahead, Michelle.
Michelle Tremont. I heard one word come out, and I will say that it is one that I myself have had to ask to be reciprocated upon myself, because when I come up here, I do exhibit it to all of you. You may not like what I have to say. I don't expect any of the seven of you to have the same opinion or to agree, but I expect you to each respect one another's opinion. And many a times, I've had to ask that you respect me in the fact that I sit back, as any other audience member does, and listen throughout the entire meeting. I'm not one of the ones that yells out, I wait my turn, and then when I come up to speak, I'm interrupted many a times. And I've had to respectfully say, you know what, I don't interrupt you. It's a respect thing. Yes, I agree, Gina, civility. I mean, turn on the TV. It's an issue that I swear should be taught from elementary up to high school, because I just don't feel like it's instilled, and we've got adults that don't seem to know how to show it. But respect to me is a bigger issue, and it's a smaller word that I think people should understand. And yes, I agree that I've seen exhibits of you guys not having respect conveyed on you as well. But it is a two-way street when it comes to respect, and I think it has to be exhumed. But also among the seven of you, because I've watched you guys now, not just since tax season, I've been coming for 4 years repeatedly. You guys all know you're tired of seeing my face coming. If you send me south, I'll gladly not come anymore. But I've watched you guys ping and pong back and forth, And at times I've referenced it as a romper room, and that's what sometimes it seems like. You want respect from the public, but you guys have to exude it amongst yourselves. And that's where I'd really like to see, and I will say over the last few months, at times it has been better. But I think you guys got to understand, it's just like when, as parents, we say to our children, do as we say, not as we do. You guys need to do as you're saying and wanting the public to do. And I'll leave it at that. You guys have talked about having the citizens email you, call you, come to meetings. I think if you take that away, rather than maybe trying to redevelop it and to come up with something better, that's a better way rather than taking it completely away. I think you're going to have a lot of angry people if they've lost their ability to come and have a voice. I do believe they need to think about that voice and the way that they use it, and I think indoor voices should be used because I've heard some that I wouldn't consider indoor voices. You talked about having items on the agenda and posing questions before. I know oftentimes I come here and I sit and I'm thinking, I have nothing to say, I'm not getting up. And then something comes up in discussion that it piques interest or raises a question or raises an issue and a concern. And I got to tell you that through public comment, there have been many things that have been resolved. I hounded you guys for 6 months about the health insurance. And I'm sorry, my hounding saved you guys $60,000 in 1 year. I did it respectfully, but it saved you money. The ethics panel was developed. Yes, the tax bill was a fiasco, but I think Mr. Fillmore talked about the fact that, the public coming and pursuing and pushing, it got things resolved. Would it have resolved without that? I guess that's for you guys to answer. But I think that the public has helped to generate, and if not motivate, certain aspects, and some things have changed. What I would ask is in meetings that I attend and go to, we develop a parking lot. And I think anybody that's been to any type of a corporate meeting knows what that is. I've brought many things to you guys and get no answer. And then I bring it again and I get no answer. And then 6 months down the road, I'm like, okay, I've asked this 4 or 5 times. If we bring something and I don't look to you for an answer and response immediately that night, the respect would be provide me with a response at some point. I mean, let's not wait 6 months, but I think, 2 meetings down the road or something should be a sufficient amount of time. And I would just like to see you guys kind of critique things, but not take it away, altogether. And I would remind that the chair has duties and authority that if things are getting out of control and you feel somebody's being disorderly or disrespectful, you've got your gavel. You've got the power. Because I've seen people come here who are not residents, who are not business owners, be less than respectful at this podium. And yes, I've seen you use your gavel. But I think that it should be something that I think needs to be looked at even more so. You have an empowerment to help run and facilitate the meetings. If somebody's not being respectful, and that shouldn't be something you should have to put into a working rule. It's, I think, unhumanistic that you have to look at something like that. But I think it's something that you need to take your power back when it comes to that, so.
Thank you, Michelle.
That's my opinion.
All right. Go ahead, Dot.
Dot Fitzgerald again. You really didn't expect me to sit still and be quiet on this issue, did you? We used to have town meetings, and people would get up and discuss the budget, and that was a democratic process. We lost a lot of the democratic process when we went to town council form of government. Not having audience participation is wrong. You really need it. Mr. Fillmore brought up some issues. I do respect Laurie's opinion as well. I have asked questions of the town manager before and not got an answer. And it took poor Mr. Dexter Parson last town council meeting, and maybe a little heated discussion, I'm sorry, to finally get his issue resolved. And we have to remember that, all of us, that you people sitting there and us in the audience, there is a bigger audience at home that are going to be watching this on TV Thursday evening. Maybe there are issues or subjects or things that are brought up in audience participation that the people at home might be interested in or concerned about, and maybe have an opinion, and maybe call or email any of you or all of you on it. So audience participation is the most democratic way I can think of to keep with the town council form of government. It's important to you people to hear our opinion. We don't always call you, we don't always email you, but, and you say you'd like to hear our opinions, okay? Keep audience participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dot. Any further questions or comments? Take the podium, sir.
Good evening, John Weersbicki, resident of Lisbon. I will keep this short because it's already been on for a little bit. Some very good points were brought up about the audience participation. I think the most significant ones where your authority is chair, and I've seen a change in how that's been happening where you're exuding a little more authority, which I think is a very great thing. I think a lot of this could be solved by you exercising your authority like you're doing. If someone is out of line, you're stopping them. And if you think what they have brought up is a very valid point, if you just say, okay, this should be brought up on next agenda, put it on next agenda in 2 weeks. If you make a decision there, the audience will know you're taking them seriously. They will have a definite time limit when they know it's going to happen. And if you think it's something that, I don't want to say bogus, but it's just not very appropriate, say, discussion has ended, we're done. And you just exercising your authority more might solve a lot of these problems. And it'll also show the respect that has also been brought up and hopefully solve the issue.
Thank you, John. Any further comments from the public? Mr. Fillmore?
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. The gentleman brought up a good point. If you would say, we're going to put this on the agenda for next week or next session, then the audience at home who have input into the issue will know that they need to be here if they want to be heard on the issue. That would be an excellent time to alert everybody. But not everybody looks on the website to see what the agenda is for the session. So if you want to table it for tonight, put it on the next agenda, fine. Announce it so that the people who watch this on Thursday, who have an interest in it, can also participate. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a good suggestion. I will try to take that into advisement. All right, any further discussion? Okay. Next item, Twyla?
Is under D, Town Manager's Report.
You've already covered some of the topics. The Rickard Trail, I had a citizen come to me and request that the Rickard Farm Trail on Mill Street be plowed so people could walk on that. This was a topic that was discussed when I first came here, and you chose, the council did not want to proceed with doing that. At the time, we were contracting that service out, and the person who came to see me feels that now we are doing our sidewalks ourselves, that we still could do that. I told him that I would move this to the Trails Committee to get their opinion. That's their jurisdiction at times. They sent me back that they do not want to do that. They don't feel there's enough interest in that to do that and take up time. They have drifting problems up there that are a real issue. We'd have to keep going back. It also would have a conflict with the snowmobilers who use that area. So I just wanted to make you aware, to get your thoughts. If you want me to ask Public Works to do that, I will do that, but I wanted to do my due diligence and bring it to you.
Is the trail, Steve, being done on the paper mill trail?
Yes.
That is being plowed?
It is being plowed, yeah.
I'm saying that it's being well maintained. It's definitely a fair balance between the snowmobile and water.
I would be very concerned about the snowmobiling issue, because when you plow that, you'd be creating a ridge of snow. And there are a lot of open fields around the Ricker Farm that would be an opportunity for people to get hurt. And I think that would have to be taken into consideration.
Any further?
Any
comments?
action you'd like me to take, or just let's leave it where it is and
Yeah,
move forward?
The one thing that we had discussed before was it being an open field, that'd be almost impossible to actually keep clear. You know, it's hard enough in Ricker Trail where it's enclosed, but,
I don't see people using snow fences very often anymore, but
well, they work. Main Street works really well this year. It's amazing how that actually worked out. Yeah, yeah, actually, Main Street would be a mess. I mean, that is actually maintained really well this year. It's actually, we'll be able to see how it works this year. It's actually taller than the fence. Yeah.
You need to raise the fence, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Once it gets
yeah.
up to there, you're supposed to go out and raise the fence.
the other thing I wanted to just bring is that the Lisbon Emergency questions. That Lisbon Emergency has been talking for quite, since I've been here anyway, about the building that they're in not being adequate for their needs. It's leaning, if you take a look at it, to one side. They have invested quite a bit of money into it to be able to use it to the capacity they have, but they have put a deposit on a piece of property right directly across from the fire station, and are planning on moving out of that building. We have a deed, or they have a deed that says if they do move out of that building before it's paid for, which was a $25,000 cost to the town, it would revert back to the town. So it looks to me like that is something that's going to be happening. I'm not sure of the time frame, but they did get approval, conditional use approval from the planning board the other night, so I'm pretty confident they'll be moving forward with their plans. So you as a council need to decide what you want to do with the building that's there, what you want to do with the property that's there, and I think, and come back and give me some direction for that. But just a heads up. And that's all
All
I
right.
have.
Anything from
Would have
council?
been nice for them to come tell us that.
It would have been nice, yes.
Right, since we bent over backwards to give them the building and
The minutes
lay
do
their
reflect
payment
that.
structure and everything else,
Yeah.
because they came begging and having no money. Right.
All right, next item, Twyla?
Is under audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium and state your name to the audience here at home.
Michelle, take the podium.
I have my question before the meeting ever starts.
Okay.
I apologize, I could have probably emailed it, but, because I've noticed it the last couple of storms, but I guess I have a question, and I guess the right person happens to be in the audience that could answer it for me, which is, do we have a policy in effect on cell phone use when running heavy equipment?
Not as such, but they're told they're not supposed to be.
Okay. I guess I just have concerns. I have found this year Public Works has been doing remarkable, and I will piggyback the comment that was made about the young man who's been running the front-end loader or whatever. I don't know. Big equipment, you guys can handle that, I can deal with insurance. Okay, so I will give kudos to that. The only thing that I have an issue with, and I've noticed it the last several storms, in particular this year, is a cell phone attached to someone's ear when they're running equipment, not any in particular person. I've seen different, pieces of equipment. And I just have a concern that I know for me, when I operate my vehicle, I don't like to even talk on my phone. And that's just running a car that only requires the use of one hand, let alone, I at least know you have other things you have to run when you're running a bucket and the plows and stuff. So I know that that takes a little bit of dexterity and thought, and I guess I just have some concerns. So can we look at trying to reinforce or just re-request that they not use cell phones? Because I'd rather look at it now than after possibly an accident or something else happening.
We'll address that. Thank you, Michelle.
That's the only thing I had, and I swear. it was
Buttons up
before the
trouble
meeting.
is hearing you loud and clear.
Thank you, that's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you, Michelle. That's exactly the kind of comment I meant right there, that we don't want to lose that kind of feedback, that, isn't necessarily a big enough thing, you're going to put it as an agenda item, but I don't want to lose that kind of feedback, because I had no idea, I haven't seen that, but I'm glad you brought it to our attention.
I've seen it a few times, like I said, they've done a great job this year, I have no complaints.
Thank you. Don, do you have a comment or a question?
Yes.
All right.
I'm Don Fellows from Fairview Drive in Lisbon. I figured I'd have the podium for myself because for audience participation tonight and take the next hour, it wouldn't be a problem. No, I have a couple quick comments. Yes, the planning board did approve the other night that purchase and on a conditional use of that piece of property out there across from the fire station. I bring it up only because I think we did a lot of good work with it, and they made some on-the-spot modifications to what their plans were to try it in keeping with the neighborhood, so that it becomes an addition rather than an eyesore out there, or another fire station. So, anyway, that passed. The other passing comment I have is that the best part of the trail is actually the paper mill trail right now, and the best part of that is that the only part you can walk on is the part where the snowmobiles go. The rest of it is so icy, even after being plowed, you couldn't walk it. And I've walked the entire thing all the way past Ricker. I was looking to get on a snowmobile trail because you can walk on them. You can't anywhere else. So it might even be beneficial to make the trail itself a half of a snowmobile trail and make it at least passable for people. With regard to, I saved these comments on the traffic plan for audience participation just because I could, and because I thought of it, like Michelle says, about halfway through. I think that our major deal with traffic is not to try to make Route 196 something it's not. What we can do is try to calm traffic, possibly limit some of the turns. I mean, if you wanted to get ridiculous, you could put Jersey barriers from one end of it to the other and stop and keep traffic flowing. But there are ways you could limit some of that. You can also use traffic circles and things like that as they become available. So other means to help Route 196 and to keep the traffic flowing might be the way. And yes, I agree that there is a huge traffic jam, especially if you go about time school is about to go in session. And I don't even know why that's, I mean, that's appears to be dangerous even. If you go at 5 in the morning like I do, or 4 in the morning, it's beautiful. But I forget that sometimes and try to get an appointment at 7:30. It takes me an hour to get through Lisbon. The other thing is, and the last thing I'll comment on is, we voted a number of years ago as a town to go from town meeting form of government, which is a direct democracy, or very close to it, to a representative democracy. And I think we need to keep that in mind, that that's what we have, a representative democracy where you guys up there do the representing. So yes, we want public input, and yes, you would hopefully want to hear from the public all the time, but you guys need the time to be able to make decisions, and this meeting is your format. If it is taken up by public comment the whole time, or diverted from what it should be doing, then you can't do your job that you were elected to do. So I think when you have your workshop on audience participation, the workshop by definition won't allow audience participation unless you call on them. I think you might want to consider in this workshop addressing a lot of the issues on time and timing and the number of times that people can get up here and speak in any one session, but that you also, each of the counselors may want to have some system so that you can appoint someone from the community to sit in that workshop with you, or a certain number of citizens. And I think you might come up with some good conclusions that you could apply to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Dot? Okay.
Dot Fitzgerald. I'm sorry. A couple of issues. I should have written them down. The last town council meeting, I forgot to mention that, and I'm glad Button Beals is here. A few years ago, when they redid the Route 196 School Street intersection, they built up the road on School Street. My driveway at 6 School Street, just before the intersection, slopes down to the sidewalk. I've brought this up other winters, and I called Public Works one time, didn't get a response, so I went up and talked to Darla. The sidewalk is low. It dips down right at the end of my driveway. It becomes a wading pool, 6 to 8 inches deep. And when there are snowbanks my fence, and then snowbanks on that grass, supposed to be grassy area. People walking along School Street and on that sidewalk have no place to go but right through that wading pool. Icy cold water, 6 to 8 inches deep. It's not a good situation. I did go up and see Darla one day. I saw a young man walking through that, and he got kind of in the middle. He was over his ankle in icy cold water. He picked up his foot and kind of shook it and just looked to say, oh my God. And if kids are walking to school and walk through that, they have no option to even go out in the road or up into my driveway there. It's not a good situation. I don't know what can be done about it. But Darla, when they plow, between the sidewalk and the street, there's that icy ridge that I drive over, and it's a mess. And that's fine, but it creates a dam. And when they plow, it's hard, and they've been doing a tremendous job, really. I'm not complaining. But along that curbing at the Vining Street, School Street intersection, there is a storm drain on the School Street side and another storm drain on the Vining Street corner. Darla had, one of the workers come with a front-end loader, and he took down that ice dam at the end of the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the street, and he, with a front-end loader, and I don't know how many truckloads of snow, icy snow that they hauled off, but it really, really helped that problem a lot. And of course, now it's frozen. We're going to be facing it again in a few weeks as it starts to melt, but it's not a good situation. I don't know what can be done to correct it, but that sidewalk is low, and it's not a good situation for people walking. On the road thing, when I said that it was 6 miles from one end of the town of Lisbon to the other, did I also mention that we've only have 4 traffic lights too? 4 traffic lights, 6 miles. Not too bad. Maybe if we beautified Route 196, the sides, more plantings, flowering trees or something like that, so people would make it more attractive for them to slow down and enjoy the scenery.
Thank you, Dot. Now, Steve, could we look into that issue with the, she's talking about with the water pooling there, and just try to see if there's anything?
Right there.
Buttons.
All you gotta do is get down and remove it from the curb every time and it'll drain.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no issue there. The sidewalk isn't that low. It's sloped down through the street. It's just a matter of taking the loader and scraping up to the curb so it can travel down to the basement.
Okay, thank you, Buttons.
Thank you. Come sometime when it's melting and walk through it and see what you
I
think.
can do that on the end of my driveway.
Any further audience
Traveled as mine.
Do we have any further audience participation? All right, well, we'll move on to the next item then, Twyla.
Under Council Communications.
Councilor Communications, does anyone have any issues to communicate?
Or good news.
Or good news? Anything going on in town you want to talk about? Roger?
If I can, I'd like to take this time to thank everybody for the outpouring of flowers and cards and affiliated with my dad's passing. It was very appreciated, very heartfelt. It's a very rough time when you lose your dad and your best friend. The family has, unbelievable the amount of people that man knew. I just can't, it's overwhelming. And I just want to thank everybody for the beautiful flowers and for the beautiful cards, and thank you very much. It was very much appreciated.
Anything else? All right then. Next item, Twyla?
Is Order 2011-30 to adjourn to the workshop for a budget referendum discussion.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? And opposed?
Pass 7-0.
All right, we will adjourn to a workshop.